Now, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, David Aworawo, joins me on the knees for more insights. Thank you so much for joining us. The VDPs, they say, by practice, would only receive 14 days of civic and military training before being armed and provided with means of communication. But they were facing hardliners who are more dangerous and determined in their strive. How commensurate will this strategy be against the non-state actors?
The decision to draft 50,000 civilians to be trained for 14 days and given weapons to defend local communities against terrorist jihadists is an indication of the very dire condition that Burkina Faso faces. So many things have been done, efforts have been made to ensure that Burkina Faso is kept safe. From the time of Kabore down to Damiba and then now young man there.
Traore.
I mean, yes, all of the efforts haven't yielded much fruit, which is why there is this desperate measure to try to, tackle the situation. The fact that they'll be given just 14 days training for them to go against usually well-trained jihadists will pose difficulties. It is doubtful whether they will be able to live up to expectation to be able to tackle the jihadists. But when one looks at the sheer number and the way they have been structured, they may be able to, make some impact. One, it is stated that 35,000 of them will be based in their local communities to defend the local communities against the jihadists. And the number is large. If you look at the Burkina Faso military itself, it's just about 12,000 strong. The army itself, 7,000, and then others, Air Force and the rest of them mix up the rest to make 12,000. So if they are drafting 50,000, that would man local communities, 35,000 to man local communities, and then the other 15,000 to be moved here and there across the country. It is possible that to have some impact in checking the advance and the success of the jihadists.
Well, are you trying to make comparison with between the MNJTF that we have here in Nigeria and that of, in collaboration, working with the security agents against the insurgents, Boko Haram? Are you looking at it from that perspective that they might be very effective in warding off the insurrection? I mean, the insurgents, talking about the terrorist jihadists that you referred to.
Exactly. If you look at the activities of the civilian JTF, especially in the northeast, in Borno and Yobe, you see that they have done a lot to reduce the intensity of the attacks of the jihadists. Maybe being on ground, they're able to understand what is happening and they're able to supply information. And when it is necessary for them to, intervene in terms of trying to check the jihadists, they have been hugely successful along that time. And the Burkina Faso experience even has an advantage over our experience here. The Burkina Faso experience, they will be trained. The number is so large, and they will be based in their respective local communities to ensure that security is provided. So when one makes a comparison with the activities of Nigeria's civilian JTF, and then when one looks at the situation in Burkina Faso and the number of civilians that will be recruited and armed to be able to defend their local communities, one will say that they will make some impact in reducing terrorist attacks in Burkina Faso.
Well, talking about Burkina Faso, the new government, so to speak, declared that its top priority would be to secure the nation's territory after the latest coup. But we all believe that coup is no longer fashionable as a means of government. Do you expect anything good to come out of it in the case of Burkina Faso?
Well, the step that the government has taken now is unusual. From the time of Kabore, there have been efforts trying to strengthen the military, try to bring foreign support, France, and now they are tilting towards Russia. Try to collaborate with other countries in the Sahel those are, measures that governments have taken over the years. And of course, when Damiba took over in January, he also tried to strengthen the military, tried to, give them more arms and all that. But the attacks have intensified. In fact, one of the excuses, pretext that Damiba gave in overthrowing Kabore was that there was a breakdown. The security situation was not as it ought to be. But all through his own time, from that January to September, not much improvement was recorded, which was also the excuse that the current government gave in overthrowing Damiba government. But this is a novel, a new approach that the government has introduced. Hopefully, it will help to reduce terrorism and insurgency in the country. But as I've said several times, beyond these local efforts, there will be the need for all the countries in the Sahel, in fact, all the countries in West Africa, to develop capacity, to cooperate, to work together. It's only when they put resources together that will be able to, maintain a strong front to be able to effectively confront and combat these terrorists.
Well, it's also said that around 4.9 million, or a fifth of the population, need urgent aid in Burkina Faso, as many mothers were forced to feed their children with leaves and salt. So how long does this country have to stay for to find its footing?
Unfortunately, what the situation reveals is that things will likely get worse until they get better. Even when Burkina Faso did not experience intense terrorist threat as it is now, the country's economy was not good. In fact, one economic analysis of Burkina Faso described the economy as the situation as grotesque. That was when terrorism was not this bad and intense. And then with the expansion of terrorism in the country now, of course, when you have violence like this, economic activities would be affected negatively, and poverty will expand. And so it will take quite some time for both stability and economic improvement to be experienced in Burkina Faso. And that is why I'm talking about ECOWAS stepping in. There's need for multinational cooperation among countries of West Africa, especially across the Sahel, so that they can join hands together to combat these terrorists. And when that takes place, then the economic issues can begin to receive attention, and then the economy can begin to improve. So for Burkina Faso, unfortunately, things will likely get worse before they begin to get better.
Well, the world is actually in chaos, war here and there. Talk about the Russia-Ukraine war, which is having global impact effect on the entire world. I'm definitely sure that Burkina Faso is also having its own fair share, from the impact of this war. But how are the international communities reacting to the urgent need of Burkina Faso to help the country regain its stability?
We have had United Nations, we've had comments, World Food Program, and others, other international non-governmental organizations that are operating in Burkina Faso. They have tried to, close the gap, bridge the gap, to ensure that the famine in the country does not, grow even worse than what we have now. In fact, things would have been a lot worse, but for the activities of especially international non-governmental organizations. They are doing their bit. We hope to continue to, assist. Unfortunately, the world is facing global economic crisis. And when you have, a crisis like the world is facing now, countries tend to look inwards. They want to solve their own problems first before trying to help anyone else, which is why the help that Burkina Faso has received is not as what many expect for things to be, better than what we have. So the rest of the world is trying to help, but these things are limited by the constraints of the global economic crisis. And what we can only say is that there's need for more help for Burkina Faso, so that the intense economic crisis and food problem they will have at least succor from the international community.
Well, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, David Aworawo, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thanks so very much.